Hello, everybody. Welcome to Sunday Night Ghost Stories Extra, because we're on a Wednesday. Oh, my goodness me. The middle of the working week, or the hump, as we call it. And certainly a lot of people who watch this show say, I give them the hump. So I went a bit Terry Wogan there for a second. Oh, hotel here. Anyway, um, so what are we reading? We are reading Ghost Stations 2, aka ARG, by Bruce Barrymore Halpenny. He's hard work, is old Bruce, because he writes in a very weird way with bizarre punctuation. Yeah, it's quite hard work. So we are. I'm sure we read that one last time. Just having a look. No, there's no mark on there, but oh well. We'll pick our way through it. What are we drinking tonight? We are drinking. It's a 2 beer strategy. So the first up, we've got some Woodgate dark fruit cider made in Somerset. No artificial flavors, sweeteners, or colours. What is it? 3.4%. Not bad. Is it a full pint? No, it's not. It's a bit like me, not quite the full pint, but so well, I thought tonight, because we've had some subscription beers turn up, but I thought we'd save going through them for half time. So as I was passing Lidl today, I thought I fancy some fruit cider. So that's exactly what I fancied. So let's just pour this out. Oh my goodness me, it's just reached that perfect moment where it's almost wanting to start spilling over the top of the glass, but not quite. Actually, this is almost a pint. Goodness me, we haven't even started the show, and already we have a dead soldier. And run BT.
Oh, it's jolly nice of you. Hello, dead soldier. Seen plenty of those in my time.
Indeed. Half time, by the way, I might buy myself a new microphone because this one's completely knackered now. So we'll put that into the recycling for tomorrow. Let's get on with the ghost stories, because the sooner I get on with the ghost stories, the sooner I can have a drink, and then the sooner we'll be ready to go downstairs and have some supper and watch another episode of The Goodies. So, The Devil's Quoits. As the air war intensified, more and more airfields were needing to keep pace with the rapidly expanding Royal Air Force. It was decided early on in the war that the eastern side of England would house the bomber stations, to the south to house the fighter stations, and the Midlands and western side would be used for training stations. I'm sure we read this one last time, never mind. One such training airfield was Abingdon in Oxfordshire, which was built during the RAF expansion period in the 1930s. Within a few months of war being declared, RAF Abingdon was bursting at the seams with aircraft, and it soon became apparent it would need a satellite airfield. Many sites in the area were surveyed, and the final choice was an area just west of the village of Stanton Harcourt. But the chosen site brought problems, not from difficulties with the landscape, but from 3 large stones standing in a field which would soon be turned into an airfield. When the villagers learned of the RAF's intention to build an airfield near their picturesque village, and in the process knocked down the 3 large stones, they were horrified at the suggestion. Not at the thought of the airfield, but at what they were going to do with the 3 large stones. As one villager said, "Did not the Royal Air Force realize that those stones were the devil's quoits? And if they disturbed those stones, it would mean death, and the accident rate on the airfield would be high." The RAF planners scorned the superstition and announced that the airfield would be built where planned. But to please the villagers, they gave orders that the devil's quoits were to be set flat under the runway. "Beware the curse of the devil's quoits," cried the villagers. as the civilian workmen arrived in their machines and commenced work on turning the green and pleasant fields into an airfield. The workmen laughed at the superstitious villagers and set about their work. They had an airfield to build, and no superstitious stones would stop them. The airfield quickly took shape, and as the days passed, the workmen thought less and less about the death threat regarding the Devil's Quoits. The three large stones still stood there, everyone knowing that who disturbed the stones, it would mean death. But surely for only those who believed in the superstition. Men had just started work on laying the runways when suddenly death fell out of the skies. On the 16th of August 1940, 3 German bombers, one for each of the 3 stones, said the locals, dropped out of the sky and attacked the workmen working on the new airfield. The German aircraft bombed and strafed the men as they ran for cover. As the dust settled, 5 workmen lay dead. Another 4 died later of their wounds. Was it the revenge of the Devil's Quoits? 9 died, 3 for each stone. 3 stones, 3 lives each. So those who disturbed the stones brought death, as the superstition said, but that did not stop the work, and the airfield opened as a satellite for Abingdon, and for the duration of the war, it housed No. 10 Operational Training Unit. The airfield closed after hostilities ceased, and parts of the old wartime airfield became a quarry. In the late 1970s, Stan Galloway returned to Stanton Harcourt for a stroll down memory lane. During his break between his first and second tour with Bomber Command, he was posted to Stanton Harcourt in 1942 as an instructor with No. 10 Operational Training Unit. He had only been on the airfield a few days when he heard the story about the Devil's Quoits. That was a long time ago now, but it was still very clear in Stan Galloway's mind as he drove down the entrance road to the perimeter track. From the perimeter track, all I could see was the conversation of the airfield. Sorry, from the perimeter track, get me teeth in. From the perimeter track, all I could see was the conversion of the airfield into a quarry and no sign of the Devil's Quoits, he said. I drove along the perimeter track until I came to the old control tower, and he added, I just had to explore inside it. The wartime control tower, the keeper of memories. Sorry, the wartime control, this is Bruce's blessed punctuation. The wartime control tower, the keeper of memories, was in good condition and had braved the elements. Stan made his way upstairs and onto the balcony, stirring up a spot of nostalgia in the process. After a short time, he made his way back down the stairs and to his car. He was about to get in when a farm worker shouted to ask what he was doing on the old airfield. I apologize for trespassing, said Stan. I apologized for trespassing, said Stan, and explained that I was stationed at Stanton Harcourt during the war. In the course of conversation, he asked if I had been in the control tower. He was surprised to hear that I had been inside. He told me the control tower was haunted by a young flying officer who had been killed in a flying accident. He said no one in the village would go in the building, so strong was the superstition. Had the flying officer, like the others, disturbed the Devil's Quoits and paid the ultimate price? Or was it the villagers' method of defense for keeping trespassers at bay? Maybe it was superstition, or maybe there was something. The Devil's Quoits, maybe. That definitely does deserve a not too sure. Itchy nose. Anyway, Slange me bar, everybody, in the magnificent Rush beer glass. You can't see it very clearly tonight, but thank you, viewers Kirsten and Steve in the United States. Cheers, me dears. That is rather nice. Dark fruit flavour apple cider, suitable for vegetarians and vegans. How many units? 1.5 UK units. The chief medical officers recommend adults do not regularly drink more than 14 units per week. So 1.5 on that. And how many units in this? 2.5. So that's 2.5, 1.5. So that's 4. So if I'm doing that 3 times a week, so that's 4, 8, 12. Oh, I'm within the limit, he said. Oh, I suddenly realised I haven't poured out my Highland Earl tonight. Goodness me. We are being very lax tonight. It's been a funny old day. When I say funny, I mean that in the ironic sense. So, let's just get me pencil so that I can mark the page so that I know we've read that one. Call it superstition. Just about all wartime aircrew were superstitious. They were addicted to or swayed by superstition by the very nature of their duties. The darkness and the high loss of aircraft and aircrew made them superstitious. For the wartime aircrews, it was a practice resulting from the fear of the unknown, not from ignorance. For some, mysterious circumstances gave way to ghosts and the supernatural. Many had good cause to be superstitious. But superstitions, in some cases, are inseparable from religious superstitions. And this was very much so with many of the aircrews. People develop personal superstitions, and the aircrew were no exceptions. Nearly all persons in all walks of life throughout the ages have held seriously or half seriously irrational beliefs concerning methods of warding off bad luck, foretelling the future, and healing or preventing sickness or accident. For the wartime bomber crews, it was good luck. For the wartime bomber crews, it was good luck needed for a safe return and for a tour of operational sorties. To bring them good luck, many of the aircrew carried what they contended to be lucky charms, one of the most notable belonging to Flying Officer C.E. Smith, who flew Handley Page Halifax LV 907 NPF Friday the 13th on 29 operational sorties. Smith sported a real Air Force type handlebar moustache, and he always carried with him on each mission a large white toy elephant, some 18 inches tall. The elephant was called Dumbo and remained in the cockpit beside Smith at all times. This earned him the nickname of Dumbo Smith. Halifax pilot Doug Bancroft always insisted on having his cap hanging on the emergency hydraulic pump lever. Why, he cannot explain. Just superstition. Did it once and was lucky, so had to continue it. It was just lucky to do so. Okay. Another bomber pilot would put on a Navy captain's cap as soon as the bomb aimer had said the magic words, "Bomb's gone." As soon as the pilot heard that, he put on the captain's cap and started to climb out of the target area. As he did so, he started to sing "A Life on the Ocean Waves," weaving the bomber from side to side as he did so, and this was a sign for the rest of the crew to join in. They had done it once and were lucky, so they continued. They survived the war. For that crew, it was lucky. Elson Wolds, a bomber airfield situated in northeast Lincolnshire on the bleak Wolds, was home for number 103 Squadron from the day it opened in July 1941 until November 1945. The code letters allocated to number 103 Squadron during this period were PM. The squadron flew Vickers Wellingtons, Handley Page Halifaxes, and Avro Lancaster bombers. By the time the Lancasters arrived, it was soon evident that any Lancaster with the identification letter A for Able had a jinx on it. In fact, it was more than a jinx. It was the evil eye, as someone put it. The first Lancaster coded PMA Able was shot down within 2 weeks. Another A Able quickly replaced it, but within a few days it had gone missing. Air crews were now looking on any Lancaster coded A Able with great superstition, and after a few more losses, someone said, "No more A Able as an identification letter." To make up the identification letter for the whole squadron, they had one squared. An example being Lancaster ED 701 PMB squared. I often wondered about that. There we go. But the best example was Lancaster ED 888 PMM2 Mike squared, which did more operations, a total of 140, than any other aircraft in Bomber Command. Its reward for such, But the best example was Lancaster ED 888 PMM Mike squared, which did more operations, a total of 140, than any other aircraft in Bomber Command. Its reward for such outstanding service, the scrap heap. A quick swig of the old cider. Cheers, me beers. Lancaster PMM Mike squared was a 103 squadron aircraft, and with the identification letter A Able removed because of superstition, maybe that is how Mike squared came into being. It proved lucky for all the air crews who flew in her. But sometimes unlucky omens worked in reverse and brought good luck. The best example being Halifax LV 907 NPF, Friday the 13th of number 158 Squadron. Halifax Friday the 13th proved to be very lucky for all who flew in her, and the Halifax bomber set up an operational record in just, but appropriately, 13 months. I'm going to read that again. It set up an operational record in just 13, right. These punctuations off here, Bruce. So Halifax Friday the 13th proved to be very lucky for all who flew in her, and the Halifax bomber set up an operational record in just, but appropriately, 13 months. Should be a full stop there. It completed 128 operational sorties, or 13 months, where it completed 128 operational sorties. Friday the 13th was so called because its nose and fuselage was painted with superstitious, defying ill omens, such as a skull and crossbones and an inverted horseshoe. On the fuselage over the door, a ladder had been painted, and the navigator sat in front of a cracked mirror. Sadly, the gallant aircraft failed to save itself, and it was reduced to scrap soon after the war. The bomb log panels of Friday the 13th were salvaged and today are on display in the Royal Air Force Museum at Hendon. Still haven't been there. Well, I have been there, but flying visit 30 odd years ago. Dogs were considered lucky, and most air crews had a dog of some kind. They were very superstitious about their pets. A good example of this is with Bobby. This was a half-breed retriever Shetland sheepdog that latched onto an aircrew at Royal Air Force Ludford Magna in the Lincolnshire Wolds. The dog and bomber crew were inseparable, and it went with them in the crew bus out to their Lancaster bomber on the dispersal pad. As the crew boarded the aircraft, Bobby would make straight for the training wheel and urinate on it. The crew laughed as Bobby cocked his leg. Brought them good luck, the crew said. Then one night in January 1945, a new driver of the crew bus would not allow Bobby to get inside. He raced across the snow-covered airfield, but it was too late to have his little piece of luck. Sadly, the bomber failed to return, and the crew has not been heard of even to this day. After waiting patiently for his master's aircraft to return back to base, Bobby suddenly gave a little bark and dashed across the airfield, never to be seen alive again. His body was later recovered in a snowdrift, and the airmen buried Bobby by the side of the road. The ghost of Bobby has been seen many times around the old airfield at Ludford. The weather was very bad. It was very cold, and it had been snowing hard. Did the crew take off without knowing that their trailing wheel had not been blessed by Bobby? Bobby knew it, and that is why his spirit still roams the old airfield today. I'll just have another quick swig of the old. Lovely. Superstition reared its ugly head in many ways. Women sometimes wore the badge of superstition, as Stan Holtham recalls. When I arrived at Elsham Wolds, I crewed up with a new crew. And on my first day out with one of my crew, I saw this beautiful waif. Bruce has spelt that capital W, lowercase AAF. Should all be caps, Bruce. Anyway, she was a little doll. I looked at my crewmate who had been on the airfield a few months and said, I'm going to enjoy it here at Elsham with girls like that. Stay away from her, Stan. She's a chop girl, he said. There was also a waif in the education section at Elsham Wolds, very beautiful, but no one would go near her. These were girls whose boyfriends were either killed or went missing. Got the chop was the term used. Word soon got around the airfield which girls were bad luck, and usually the aircrew would keep well clear of them. They became known as the chop girls. The finger of superstition could point at anybody, anything, or any place. This became so with the village of Bracebridge Heath near Lincoln. Just after the war, married quarters on some RAF stations were very hard to come by. This was very much so in stations. Sorry, this was very much so in 1948. Oh, sorry, let's try again. This was very much so in 1940. Well, the voice was there. Yeah, this was very much so in 1948 to 49 when I was posted to RAF Waddington, said Stan Holtham. There was a village called Bracebridge Heath, which was close to RAF Waddington, and the people there were willing to put us up. But no one would ever go to live in the village because all the chaps who had digs there were killed. We lost an awful lot of men who were on Lincoln bombers during my time at RAF Waddington. Superstition for a Christian may believe that in time of trouble he will be guided by the Bible if he opens it at random and reads the text that first strikes his eye. Many did read the Bible and pray before a mission, but to be doubly sure, many would take along that special silk scarf, or the lucky button, or rabbit's foot. That definitely deserves a... Press the button again. Right, we've definitely read The Fickle Finger of Fate because there is a little pencil mark in there. We've read the Mingadalong mystery. We read the Harrier Jet mystery. Have we read? I'm sure we've read the. I'm sure we've read the Lightning mystery, but if we haven't, we'll read it again. So, oh, we've got, has viewer David joined us? He has. Hello, viewer David. God bless you. God bless you, sir. Oh, I gotta say, that is Lidl Woodgate dark fruit cider made in Somerset. That's for the win, that is. Wonder where they're based. Woodgate cider doesn't say where they're I was going to say distillery is. No, not a Robbie sausage. Oh well. But it's a Somerset cider on a Somerset show coming from Somerset. Right, here we go, viewer David. We've read this one before, but we are going to read it again. Lightning XS 894 mystery. After the Harrier mystery, which was the story just before, we now have the Lightning mystery, but this one a mystery with a capital M. At 2200 hours on Tuesday, the 8th of September 1970, Lightning XS 894 lifted off the runway and climbed quickly into the night sky over Royal Air Force Binbrook in Lincolnshire. At the controls of the single-seat jet fighter was an American pilot, Captain William Schaffner. Not William Shatner, William Schaffner, who was on his second tour at RAF Binbrook, and he loved to fly the Lightning. He was very much at home with it. For Captain Schaffner, it was just another routine flight exercise. Sorry, for Captain Schaffner, it was just another routine night exercise. He had done them many times before, but this time it was to be his last and be anything but routine. At 2300 hours, just 1 hour after getting airborne, he radioed in to say that he was in trouble but still flyable. The ground control kept him in radio contact as they ordered him out over the sea to the ditching area, where he was told to meet up with the Shackleton before ditching into the sea. The doomed Lightning arrived over the ditching area, a point a few miles at sea just off Flamborough Head, and the Avro Shackleton was already there. So far, all was going according to plan, but things were soon to change. As soon as Captain Schaffner was over the ditching area, he was told to eject, the normal procedure, and the pilot is then picked up from the sea. But for some unknown reason, he did not eject. The ejection seat did not fire. Time and again he tried, but without success. Valuable seconds were now ticking away. The Shackleton circled the area, waiting and waiting. The crew could not understand why he had not ejected. What could have gone wrong? Was he ill? Suddenly, the Lightning jet fighter dipped its nose and started a steady descent down to the sea, with the pilot still on board. It looked as though he had given up trying to eject and he was trying to belly land onto the sea. Slowly, the Lightning dropped towards the cold, uninviting sea. Down, down. Minutes later, the Lightning hit the water and it settled on it like a great metal bird and floated in a relatively calm sea. As soon as the Lightning hit the deck, the Shackleton appeared overhead and illuminated the area. They wanted to give the pilot all the help possible, and it was very good morale, and it was very good moral support to know that they were there. They lit up the area. The crew of the Shackleton were very relieved to see the pilot climb out onto the wing and get into the sea. But did they see the pilot get out? They could not hover like a helicopter and keep over the area in order to illuminate the downed aircraft all the time. They had to go round and round. So are they sure they saw the pilot get out? We do not know. They thought they did, and at the time they said they saw him climb out onto the wing. For quite some time, the Lightning floated on the sea. Then slowly it sank beneath the waves and settled on the seabed in an upright position. Back at Royal Air Force Binbrook, Captain Schaffner's wife was told her husband had had to ditch in the sea just off Flamborough Head in East Yorkshire. But not to worry, for the Shackleton was with him when he ditched, and the crew had seen him get out onto the wing before the aircraft went down. He was equipped for a sea ditching, and there was no worry. Air Sea Rescue was underway. So far, so good. But Air Sea Rescue could not find Captain Schaffner. even though they searched a wide area of sea around where the lightning went down. From the shore, flares had been seen about 10 miles offshore at the time the lightning ditched, but after an all-night search, nothing was found. So where was US Air Force Captain William Schaffner? Just a routine search and rescue his wife had been told. So what had gone wrong? As the search was coming to a close, a Grimsby trawler, the Ross Kestrel, sighted more red flares and went to investigate, but she found nothing. And the trawler crew said the sea was getting rough. At first light on Wednesday, the 9th of September, the Shackletons were out again. This time the search was intensified, and they were joined by an air-sea rescue helicopter from nearby RAF Leconfield. Also joining in the search were 3 lifeboats from Bridlington, Filey and Flamborough, and they combed a 12 square mile area in rough sea. But the search was fruitless. So where was Captain Schaffner? As the search parties returned, empty-handed, an official from the Air Ministry said, "I don't think we are going to find him." And the headlines of the local newspaper, the Grimsby Evening Telegraph, for the 9th of September were, "Hopes fade for Lincolnshire jet pilot." So where was Captain Schaffner? And why the sudden change? When he ditched into the sea, they said it was a straightforward air-sea rescue. The mystery deepened. And words started to get changed from what was first said. The Defence Ministry official then added, "I don't think he got out of the plane. No wreckage has been found." What a stupid statement. And what was the purpose of it? The Shackleton crew were with Captain Schaffner, and at the time they said they saw him climb out onto the wing and get into the sea well before the lightning went down in one piece. It did not break up. So who is right? Since announcing Captain Schaffner's ditching into the sea, his wife waited anxiously at RAF Binbrook for news, being told at first that he had been seen getting out of the aircraft, then that he hadn't. All so very strange. Oh, well, a quick swing right up to. We've just gone through the half-hour mark, so slange. Captain Schaffner was a very experienced pilot, having flown the F-104 Starfighter, the Lockheed F-104 Starfighter, but Bruce, that should be F-104, and had over 6,000 hours on fast jets. He was with his second tour at RAF Binbrook, and he was on strength with number 5 Squadron, a very experienced pilot and well aware of what a ditching at sea entailed. Again, Bruce back again with the errant comma. He was on his second tour at RAF Binbrook and, comma, he was on strength with, doesn't need the comma, Bruce, and he was on strength with number 5 Squadron. That's the flow of the sentence. Anyway, but now the mystery deepens still further. So let us look at the facts to date. Captain Schaffner radioed to say he was in trouble, but no SOS was heard before he ditched, and no signal was received from his Sabre, a search and rescue beacon carried by all Royal Air Force pilots. Why? During the time of the search, Royal Air Force Leconfield said the weather was grey and windy. Coxswain John King of the Bridlington lifeboat said, "If the pilot had got into his dinghy, I feel we would have found him by now. The weather is beginning to deteriorate. We were shipping heavy seas, and on one occasion our bowman was lifted off his feet and crashed onto the deck, injuring his back." So what had happened? Why the change of story after the Shackleton crew said they saw him get out and into the sea? And why did the Ministry of Defence say no wreckage had been found? They knew that the lightning got down in one piece. It even floated for quite some time. The Shackleton crew illuminated the area, and the lifeboat coxswain had said that they would have found him if he had got into his dinghy. The Shackleton crew said he had got into the sea. So where was Captain Schaffner? Who is telling the truth? An investigation got underway, and it was decided to recover the lightning from its watery grave. The divers went down to inspect the lightning, found sitting on the seabed, complete, with the canopy still on, but no pilot. How had he got out with the canopy still in place? It was very eerie and a complete mystery. The Lightning jet fighter XS-894 was lifted from the seabed, was lifted from off the seabed and taken back to RAF Binbrook. Now the mystery deepens still further and becomes a chilling, eerie mystery. Again, he's done it again. And, comma, becomes a chilling, eerie mystery. No, just needs to be and becomes. On examination back at RAF Binbrook, they found the Lightning had only slight nose damage. Otherwise, it was perfect. But the cockpit was closed and no pilot inside. No one could answer that. The seat was still intact. The seat had fired but not worked. They call it a light strike. It did strike, but it did not blow the canopy, and the seat was still in place. So very strange. So where was Captain Schaffner? I've got to do it, folks. So where was Captain Schaffner? Weeks later, the body still had not been found, and the Royal Air Force inquiry did not solve the mystery. The lightning had been found sitting upright on the seabed, canopy on, but no pilot inside. So how had the pilot got out, and where did he go? To this day, the body of Captain Schaffner has never been found. To add to the mystery, a year later, another Lightning from RAF Binbrook, and also piloted by a United States Air Force pilot, ditched in the same spot as Captain Schaffner had done, and he was picked up safely by helicopter. So what had happened to Captain Schaffner? He had ditched as ordered, and in the right place. In 1987, 17 years after the incident, I set about trying to solve the eerie mystery. Being ex-RAF Provost, that was my job when in the Royal Air Force. But even I could not chip the veil of secrecy that surrounded the Lightning mystery. At the Ministry of Defence, doors were closed in my face. And at the all-telling United States Air Force Records Office, I only had to mention Captain Schaffner and Lightning XS-894 to have the door slammed. The skeleton remains in the cupboard, and Captain Schaffner body. The skeleton remains in the cupboard, and Captain Schaffner's body remains where? That I cannot answer. But one thing is certain: it was not in the Lightning, but the ejection seat was, and the canopy was still on. I think that definitely does deserve a thunder strike. There we go. I'm just seeing where we are with other stories here, folks. Yeah, we've read that one. We've read that. Yeah, we read that one. We read that one. Right, we'll try and go back to the beginning. In terms of the aircraft, the canopy was closed and there was nobody in there. Well, to be honest, the canopy could have just closed. If the ejection system had fired properly, I can't remember on the Lightning whether it's got an MDC or whether the canopy just goes off anyway. Yeah, there wouldn't have been a canopy, or there would have been a hole in the canopy. So the fact that he didn't eject because the seat was still in there. So I think what's most likely is that in theory, he got out and then the canopy slammed shut again. That's my theory. But but I'm not Bruce Barrymore Holcomb. So anyway, I'm going to have some Thai chili rice snacks. And then we're going to open the right. We have here a brand new Beer 52 box. So, advertising blurb. So, as always, we've got Creative Nature light and crunchy thin salt and vinegar. And then we've got how this snack gives back Bombay mix, a crisp and crunchy spiced medley. Right. So, what are the beers? Oh, we got the magazine as well. Never read the magazine, but perhaps I'll give that a go. So, let's have a dig through. So, what have we got here? We've got Saltaire Brewery Lager, clean and refreshing, brewed in Yorkshire, 4%. Beer done right. So we've got the Saltaire Brewery. So we've got that, which is a lager. I get the feeling these are all probably English. We've got Mashrat wheat beer, 4.5%. Born from the shadows, crafted for the bold. Just seeing, oh, good, that's got loads of stuff to read on that. So there we go. Mashrat. That looks fun. And then we've got the Binney Brewing Company, Under the Manhole Cover, Hazy Pale, 4.3%. Where are they based? Just having a look. These, I think these are all British beers. So we've got that one, which is Under the Manhole Cover. I like the illustration there. These are brilliant. And then we have Trig Brewery Landloper, 5.1%, hazy IPA. That's brewed in Yorkshire. Yeah, Trig Brewery, 2A, Harwood Road, York. So there we go. Nice little illustration on there. I like that. Hellfire Pale Ale, 5.2%, premium pale ale from the Leeds Brewery. Right. And then we have Fuzzy Logic Hazy Pale Ale, 4.4%, Centennial Talus from the Wensleydale Brewery. So, like I say, I would have had some of these tonight, but they do need chilling. And I wanted to open them live on the show. Then we've got Yorkshire. I think there's definitely a northern flavour to this tonight, if you pardon the pun. Kirkstall Yorkshire Black Extra Stout, 4.2%. Yorkshire Black is Kirkstall's smooth, easy drinking stout, soft and balanced with a gentle roasted bitterness and a clean, satisfying finish. You know what? I'm going to have to look up Ghosts of Yorkshire. Ghosts of the North, Ghosts of Yorkshire. Then we've got Roosters Mango Hazy Assassin, deceptively drinkable Mango IPA, which is just seeing what it's 5.7%. So that's a cracker. Goodness me, I think there's 10 in here. Then we've got, again, from the Leeds Brewery, Gathering Storm, traditional stout, 7%. Oh, my goodness me. That looks awesome sauce. Looking forward to that. And then we have Hex, Hell's Lager, or Helles Lager, the salt beer. Salt. I think that's the name of the brewery. Saltaire, 4%. So we've got Hex, Helles Lager. What did on Thursday night? I tuned in to watch Sunday Night Ghost Stories Extra, but instead he was just going through blessed subscription beers that he got. Amity Brewing Company, Amethyst Plum Porter. I like the sound of that. Amity Brewery, they are, trying to see where they're from. Bradford. Yeah, Amity Brewery, Bradford. So these are all northern. And then we have Hex Export Stout, 5% dark. Might look at that. And finally, the last ones are Aquamarine New England IPA, 6.8% Kirkstall. So that's, again, beautiful illustrations. Absolutely fabulous. Love that. And House Trousers. Citra Pale Ale, 4.2%. Last dirt for tonight. Yorkshire Rider Pale Ale, 3.4% from the Kelham Arlen Brewery, Brew York. Nice illustration there of a man on his horse. And finally, Zapato Mosaic Zapat Apple Mosaic. Zapat A Pale, 5.5%. And it's from the Zapato Brewery, Marsden, brewed at Kirkstall, Leeds. So again, these are all up north. So, excellent. Looking forward to shoving them in the fridge and enjoying them. We are going to open up the wasabi mixed rice snacks. And I'm also going to have a look to see if we've got any books out there. Haunted Yorkshire. So there we go. That's more like it. So Haunted Yorkshire. Haunted Yorkshire, 72 pages, just having a look. Hardcover, £5.18. Not entirely sure about this one. Haunted Yorkshire. Just now a quick read to see if it's a fairly quick read, focusing more on folklore and ghosts and not just pure ghost stories, ghost lore. Okay. How much do they want for that? £5. Ex-library book, £5. Oh, there's one here for £1. Used, very good, £1.69. Yeah, we'll add that to the basket. And I'm also going to add my, I wanted to get a nice rainbow cap to annoy Reg, friend Reg. So don't need that, don't need that. Save it. Oh, Daisy, no, let's go back. Add to basket, right. What What did you do on Friday night? Wednesday night, rather. I watched Confused Man from Dudley with the holes in his head do an Amazon order. So, got that. Yeah, that's fine. We're going to order that book, and also order the baseball cap. Oh, £12.93. I wasn't expecting it to be that much. Okay. Subtotal. Well, I don't get subtotal £9.73. So why is it suddenly gone up to postage and packing? Do you know what? We'll do it after the show. I'm getting sidetracked there. So yeah, we'll do it after the show. Have some more wasabi snack mix, I think. What we've been up to today, it's mostly been work. In fact, it's entirely been work. So, cheers, me beers. Right, let's dip back to the beginning of this book to see if there are any stories that we can read. God, he goes on and on and on and on and on. I'm sure we read that one the other. Yeah, we read that one the other day. Let's mark that one. We've read Psychic Powers, Paranormal Happenings. I'm sure we read that one. Sure we read that one. Oh, do you know what? We'll do Paranormal Happenings. So let's get these out of the way. Sainsbury vibrating. So the next beer tonight is the excellent chocolate stout from Aldi. Absolutely love this. And we will be opening it with the magnificent Godzilla bottle opener. Lovely. Oh, delicious. And that is the Bio-Goji design from 1989. You can tell by my pointed head and the ears, and spent far too much time watching Godzilla films, but there we go. Right, here we go. Can't find the message page that we're going to be reading now. We read Psychic Powers. I knew we read Psychic Powers. Read Paranormal Happenings. All the beer burps at 55 minutes. Goodness me, we're almost at the end of the show and I haven't even had any beer yet. Paranormal Happenings. The paranormal, I did explain in chapter 1, and here we look at the paranormal happenings of Gordon West, the sights, sounds, and events that he has encountered. To me, the sighting of aircrew is normal and is something which I have had to learn to live with, he said. I feel too that many of those young airmen who died refuse, in fact, to accept the fact that they are dead and that they still continue to carry on with the war. As for them, it is not, in fact, over. In short, many of these old airfields are still operational in the world of the paranormal. But let us go back to the beginning. It's gone a bit Dylan Thomas now, to begin at the beginning. Gordon West was born in 1941, and within a year he was living in Lincoln. His parents were, in fact, Salvation Army officers and were in the city of Lincoln carrying out their duties. He was taken many times to Royal Air Force Scampton, and even at this very early age, he felt a very strong pull towards what was going on. As a small boy, he used to holiday in Scotland at a place called Rattray Head, where his uncle was the station officer of the Coast Guard station. Doesn't need a comma there, Bruce. Shortly after the war had finished, and for many years afterwards, he used to walk around the remains of the airfield, which was some 3 miles from the Coast Guard station. Doesn't need a comma, Bruce. I've always been drawn to this airfield, mostly because I am, and always have been, most interested in aircraft. And secondly, I always felt at home when there, and that I was surrounded by friends. These friends, without names, seemed almost more real than my real life friends, he said. And he continued, on many occasions I would stand inside the unused aircraft hangars and listen to whistling, the sounds of spanners being dropped and used, as well as the sounds of metal making contact. As a small boy, I thought these sounds could well be heard by everyone. I would hear also the sound of heavy engines being started and run up to full throttle, and then the sounds of aircraft moving around the perimeter tracks. I would hear very clearly also the sounds of engines as they moved down the runway, and then became faint and in the distance. It was many years later, eventually, when I asked some other boys who were with me to be quiet in order that I could try and identify the sounds that I did, in fact, realize the others did not always. In order that I could try and identify the sounds that I did, in fact, realize that others did not always hear the same sound. It doesn't make sense, Bruce. Anyway. It was always my ambition to be a Royal Air Force pilot, but as my parents were of a very low salary, I decided to leave school at the age of 15 and to bring some well-needed money into the house. My ambition thus being thwarted. From being the age of 11, I was always aware of an airman standing and moving around with me. I told very few people of this at the time, as once again, to me, this was very normal. Almost coming up to the hour mark. Slange me, wow. Oh, chocolate stout is. Oh, that's lovely. I'll just read you the blurb. It says, brewed in the UK in partnership with Hall & Woodhouse, the well-known 1980s pop duo. A rich, indulgent stout featuring luxurious chocolate flavors balanced by notes of roasted malt. Hour mark, there we go. 5%. Marvelous, love it. Kind of reminds me a bit of Derail Ale, which we used to get from the Botstein Brewery. R.I.P. Gordon West grew up during the war years, and he became very interested in the men and their flying machines. In his early teens, he would save up his pocket money, and as soon as he had 10 shillings, he would be away for a joyride at the local airfield of Scone in Scotland. For at that time, he was living in Perth. Always, before I entered the control tower at Scone to hand over my money for the flight, the faint but clear outline of an airman would always pass me, walking very briskly, and go into the tower some yards ahead of me, he said. I looked on him, in fact, as a guardian, and well I may, as we had to land on one occasion in a snowstorm after taking off in perfect weather. And as you will appreciate, in a Miles Messenger, we had no radio or windscreen wipers to help us. We were most fortunate to land safely with snow piling up on the wings. My father was with me on this occasion. It was his first and last flight. Right, this might see us through to the end of the show, actually, because we're an hour in. Slange. Oh, my goodness me. Hour into the show, and we haven't had a bump yet. So, in the magnificent United Federation of Planet Shot Glass, again, courtesy of viewers Kirsten and Steve in the United States. Slange me var. Oh, lovely. As a result of his parents' work, Gordon West lived in many parts of England, Scotland, and Northern Ireland. Many moves and many new houses. But at each new place, his guardian airman has always been with him, as he explains. As a young man of 20, I joined the Huddersfield Fire Brigade as a full-time fireman, and there were many occasions when, in the face of danger, I would be led to safety by my friend, who always seemed to be able to find an escape route when I was unable to see, blinded by smoke or in a very dark area. On many occasions also, when driving a car, my decisions would be made between my unseen friend and myself, thus avoiding an accident. But it was not until I was in my 30s that I did realize that I was psychic. I knew I was psychic. This, in fact, came as a surprise to me, as I had thought in my younger days that the appearance of airmen, as well as others, was in fact normal. Many has been the occasion when my life, as well as the lives of others, has been saved when I have been pushed in the back and moved out of a potentially dangerous position or situation. Just going to say also, Bruce has this annoying habit of where he's got realized other words that should have. Just going to go back. Realized. What's the other word? This fact came as a surprise. He spells them with Z's at the end. That's the American way of spelling things. It's nothing wrong with that, but Bruce, it's an S, not a Z. Anyway, let's have another swig of the old beer. Slange me well. Viewer David says, good grief. I never thought Shatner's bassoon would ever land on this show. Wonders will never cease. Yeah. In 1982, Gordon West and his family moved into Lincolnshire, and it brought back many memories of his childhood days. And his first visit was to his old house in Lincoln, only to find his house had been bulldozed away. Only the memories remain. He stood alone, deep in his thoughts, but he was far from being alone, as he recalls. This time, my friend the airman was as real to see as a normal person. On this time around, he gave his name as Bell, Squadron Leader Bell. After that, he was always making an appearance, and his trouble always seemed to me to be the same. He was afraid of fire, and in fact, this became catching as I too developed a fear of fire, which was strange, as I had been in the fire service. Also, he would go to very great lengths to explain to me that he was having some trouble with his parachute and harness. On occasions, he would, in fact, become very aggressive when I just stood and tried to understand just what he was saying. I always knew when he would appear, as I would be aware that the temperature would drop, and it would, in fact, become very, very cold. As time went on, his appearance would herald the start of a very strong wind force, so strong, in fact, that on some 7 occasions I was thrown for many yards, and on 3 occasions I was knocked to the ground, resulting in heavy bruising. This gentleman, who was new to me, would appear at least once every 2 weeks. On these occasions, I could be walking in woods in the Woodhull Spa area, or, for that matter, near to Royal Air Force Coningsby. The venue for the gentleman's appearances seemed to be anywhere in the county of Lincolnshire. We have a dachshund dog, and he did in fact suffer a change of personality if he was present with me when this particular gentleman appeared. The dog would go black in colour and would, in fact, launch himself into the air in a most aggressive way. As you well know, a dachshund in our case is red in colour, and you do not need to tell me that it is no mean feat for a dachshund to reach one's throat, as their legs, to say the very least, are very small. So much for the aggressive airman. He did cause a lot of mischief and problems, but fortunately, most do not. In actual fact, they can be a very great help. Just going to bookmark that. We're going to have a bit more of the old wasabi mix. These Gert's starving. Fine. Oh my goodness me. Hour into the show, well, hour and 8 minutes into the show, and we have our second dead soldier for the night. And run B2.
It's jolly nice of you. Hello, dead soldier. Seen plenty of those in my time.
Cheers. In May 1983, Gordon West took his family on a visit to Royal Air Force Scampton. For Gordon, it was the first time that he had returned since the war years, so the memories came flooding back. So the memories came flooding back as he drew up outside the guard room, and he takes up the story. After looking around the Lancaster at the main gate, we were taken to Racial Slur's grave. Our dachshund, who loves car riding, was of course in the car, where he is always most happy to be. He can be left for hours in the car if necessary. I don't think so. Whatever your name is, Gordon. No, I shouldn't leave a dog in a car anyway. He can be left for hours in the car if necessary. But as soon as we arrived by Racial Slur's grave, he became most upset. Probably because it's racist, for goodness sake. He became most upset to the point that he was throwing himself around the car and was in fact throwing himself at the windows of the car. My fear was that he would damage himself. I asked the flight lieutenant who was showing us around if I could move the car. It was only when I did so that our dog returned to his normal behavior. He was in a state of distress and was completely exhausted. To this day, if we use the word racial slur, he will make to go out to our car. Really? That's depressing. Anyway, the atmosphere at Scampton on that occasion was, to me, just like ice, and my wife and daughter looked very uneasy. I'm not surprised if you're shouting racial slurs at dogs. Anyway, my wife is not usually too tuned into atmospheres, but this time she most certainly was. In fact, I did in fact consider that we were most fortunate to be at Scampton at the time, as I was later told that the former 617 members were unable to look around as the AOC was doing an inspection at the time of the anniversary. I looked up to Guy Gibson's office on this occasion to see the outline of a face disappear and then swiftly, to see the outline of a face appear and then swiftly move away. After a most interesting visit, we returned home to Woodhall Spa. Chocolate's down. Up. Long and lingering with a vanilla sweetness and delicate spices. Got to say, very nice for a blended scotch. Might get some more of this actually. Winner, winner, Christmas dinner. Not many days after, on the evening of the 16th of May, 1983, I decided to go to Royal Air Force Scampton and to be there at 9:28 p.m., the precise time that the first wave took off on the dam's raid. I did this in the main as I did feel that the whole world was thinking about the raid and that the main attentions were being placed at Marham in Norfolk, where the present 617 Squadron were entertaining the former 617 members. I felt sad that Scampton, where it all happened, seemed to be getting no attention. The night of the 16th of May, 1983, was a rather wet, damp, and cold night, and after driving the 25 miles to Lincoln from Woodhull Spa, I decided to park the car at the far end of Scampton. I felt that this was where I should be stood. It was not for some time later that I did in fact discover that I had been standing exactly under the path which was taken on the takeoff that night, so many years ago. As it was cold, I decided to leave the engine running on my car. This, I thought, would keep the car warm for my journey home. At exactly 9:28 p.m., the area in which I was standing froze. I mean, really froze. I have not the slightest doubt in my mind that what I heard was the roar of Merlin engines. The Merlins ran across the field on over to where I was standing. I stood looking at the very low cloud base, thinking how different the weather was on the night of the 16th of May, 1943, when it was reported that the evening was very warm. So warm that Wing Commander Guy P. Gibson flew in his shirt sleeves. The noise of the Merlin engines turned back over the airfield and over towards the city of Lincoln. Then I sat inside my car, which was by this time like a fridge, and noticed that the temperature gauge was showing blue for cold. In actual fact, my Talbot Horizon tended to overheat slightly when left running and stationary. So it was very strange. As soon as I moved the car, the needle immediately returned to normal, and I had the very great pleasure of feeling heat return. That night, I was unable to sleep as I was very restless, and my daughter did complain to me the very next morning. So I swallowed a bit of air there. Strange. That night, I was unable to sleep as I was very restless, and my daughter did complain to me the very next morning that I was talking in my sleep and that I had kept on about bomb load, fuel consumption, etc. But that was not the end of the mystery. In fact, the mystery was only to deepen when Gordon's parents paid them a visit, and he suggested that they all have a run out in the car to RAF Scampton. They all thought it was a splendid idea and set off for the one home of the Danbus, parked at exactly the same spot as this was before the Red Arrows made their home at Scampton, and the yellow lines were not as yet painted, he said. As I was parking the car, I was explaining to my mother about what had happened on my previous visit, when exactly the same thing happened again. My mother, sensing the changing atmosphere, thanked me for bringing her to Scampton and promptly asked me to move the car on. As I did so, I saw in my driving mirror the look of relief on her face. So, has Gordon West the power to unlock the time zone? There are many, many things which we cannot understand, he said. That is very true. And he added, I only have to drive past the main gate of Ludford Magna to feel the atmosphere come alive. These I would call paranormal happenings. And when I asked Gordon West how he felt about it all, he said, I do find that as time goes on, these feelings become much stronger and not weaker with the passing of time. And he added, apart from seeing airmen on the various airfields, it is also possible, I have found on many occasions, to be actually hit or struck by something or someone trying to attract your attention. Sometimes these blows can be so severe that they can knock you over or leave you without your breath. Events of the paranormal can either be most pleasing or disturbing. I do feel that the whole subject of the paranormal relating to the many old airfields in Lincolnshire should be studied very closely as a science. Gone a bit brummy there. Should be studied very closely as a science. Now the book is in print, someone might take up the idea to study the paranormal as a science. But for me, I think it is beyond the scope of science. Are we going to squeeze one more in tonight? Just having a quick look. Oh, there's the bookmark. Because we've got Ghostwatch, but that's kind of like, it's very entertaining to read, but it's dull as ditch water to read out loud. So, oh, the beer burps. 1 hour and 19 minutes. I was wondering when that was going to happen. Sorry, just jumping ahead here to see if I can find a nice short one. I can't. Oh, I think I can. I think Ghosts from the Past will hit the spot nicely. Looking for his pencil. Where's my pencil gone? Oh, there it is. Yeah, Ghosts from the Past. I think we'll read that one. Slange. Ah, cheers, me bears. I've forgotten where the bookmark was again. What do you do on Wednesday night? I don't know. I tuned in to watch Sunday Night Ghost Stories Extra, but instead a confused bloke from Dudley with holes in his head couldn't find the blessed page he just marked up. Oh, for goodness sake, I just marked up a page which I thought would be ideal, and I can't find it. Ah, here we go. Yeah, found it now. Right. Ghost from the Past. In 1973, Douglas Durkin from Owen Sound, Canada, returned to England for a sentimental journey round some of his old wartime airfields. He was accompanied by his wife, and his first call was at Royal Air Force Leaming in Yorkshire. It was here, as a flight engineer with number 429 Squadron, that Douglas Durkin completed a tour of bombing missions. The station was then number 63 Royal Canadian Air Force Base and part of number 6 Group Royal Canadian Air Force. Many brave young men miles from home flew from Leaming and many died from Leeming. RAF Leeming became operational in June 1940, and today it houses the Tornado aircraft and the ghosts from the past. Many ghosts and the ghosts from the past, full stop. Many ghosts have been seen and heard on the airfield. I wrote about the ghosts of RAF Leeming previously, and from the material received, this must tie with RAF Bircham Newton as being the most haunted airfield. It is certainly the most haunted active RAF airfield. So it was no surprise to hear what Douglas Durkin said after his visit to RAF Leeming. Again, Bruce, surprised with the Z. That's not how we spell it. Slowly be fine. Cheers. However, let us go back to the start. Alan Harridance. Alan Harridance has no doubt that it is the most haunted airfield. He worked on the post-war work for the repairs and runway extensions, which was carried out by Robert M. Douglas, civil engineer contractors from Birmingham. Many of the workmen said the airfield had an eerie atmosphere, particularly around the old wartime bomb store. As I came round the corner of the old bomb store, I saw through the mist a figure of an airman in full flying gear, said Alan Harridance. He was sitting on a low concrete wall about 20 feet away. Tom, who was cook for the workmen, had a cold fright when he saw a ghostly figure of an airman in full flying kit. He was sitting at the far end of the mess room, said Tom. Even during the summer months, many buildings had a cold feeling, and even Sammy, the local poacher, found the haunted airfield more than he could bear. It was a spooky place, he said. Could all these people be wrong? Sammy witnessed an encounter of the third kind, but he could not understand what it was all about. He did not know it was a frightening experience and one that he did not want to witness again. Sammy explains, I was coming back along the perimeter track one morning when suddenly I saw what seemed to be a glow in the middle of the airfield. At the same time, I saw airmen in full flying kit walking from the glow towards me. Then a breeze got up and the air seemed full of people talking. I was scared stiff and dived for cover in the long grass. After a few minutes, I lifted my head in time to see the phantom flyers walk into the mound and just disappear. I looked over to where the glow had been, and that had gone too. The wind had dropped, and all was quiet. What had Sammy witnessed? A glimpse into another time zone? Whatever it was made him so frightened he never returned to the airfield. Many people have reported seeing a glow like a fire, but no fire. We do know that many crashes happened on the airfield. Many were killed. And we do know that a 4-engine bomber crashed near where Sammy saw the glow, and all the crew were burnt alive in the crash. Had Sammy witnessed an encounter of the third kind from another time zone and seen again the crashed bomber and its crew? Slash. The Royal Air Force police dogs would not go near the area around the old bomb dump, and when passing near one of the hangars, the hair on the dog's neck would rise, and some would give a low growl. So it was to a very haunted airfield that Douglas Durkin returned to. He had spent a year at RAF Leeming during those hectic and tragic wartime days. Now he had returned. When I asked the corporal at the gate whether we could look around, he obliged us by calling the station commander and getting permission, said Douglas. The corporal accompanied us, and as I pointed out a black wartime hangar that I remembered, he said it was now locked. Curious, I asked the reason, and he said the ground crew would not go in the place as a spectre had appeared 2 or 3 times as the men were cleaning the premises. Being an active RAF station, it is very difficult for anyone to say that they have seen a ghost. Many have seen and heard ghosts, but never report it. Douglas was keen to find out more, and he was then told the full story. Oh, here he is, the star of the show. Coming up, Derpy. Come on. We're just coming towards the end. Come on up. Come on. There we go. There he is, the star of the show. Douglas was keen to find out more, and he was then told the full story. The ghost was a pilot in World War II battle dress with Mae West and old-style helmet. He calls for his crew very mournfully. It is the ghostly voice that chills everyone who hears it. It is the voice of fear, and many say of doom and despair. Come on, Derps, you're in front of the camera. Come on. Come on. Ladies and gentlemen, my cat's backside. The hangar was locked after one man became so unnerved about seeing the ghost pilot and hearing his mournful cries. Another man had an accident after seeing a glowing light and hearing a ghostly voice. It sounded from another world, he said. After many other incidents from people who had heard the mournful cries of the ghost pilot calling his crew, people became afraid if they heard the chilling cries. They said to hear the cries meant doom and despair. To stop further problems, the hangar was locked, but you could still sense a presence, said one RAF policeman. Even when all was locked and silent, my police dog would look towards the hangar, its head held on one side and its ears erect, very eerie. Apparently, there was a pilot of a Handley Page Halifax bomber who visited the hangar to see how the repairs were proceeding on his aircraft, which had received damage in a raid. Whilst inspecting the bomber, someone working inside accidentally lowered the undercarriage, and the pilot was crushed to death. With the loss of their pilot, the crew had to go back to a training unit to be given a new pilot. Thus, the ghost returns and calls for his crew. Over 20 people have seen the ghost pilot. Half of them have heard his mournful calling. Sometimes the ghost is quite clear and surrounded by greenish light. Other times the ghost pilot is indistinct, almost like a bad television reception. One thing is certain, so many people cannot be wrong. They did see and hear ghosts from the past. RAF Leeming holds many secrets. Now only the new Tornado aircraft. RAF Leeming holds many secrets. Not only the new Tornado aircraft, but also ghosts and encounters of the third kind. That's most discombobulating to be trying to read a ghost story whilst his royal derpness here is vying for your attention. You done there, Derpy? What happened to my pencil? Oh, there it is. Here he is, the star of the show. Goodness me, that's it for tonight, folks. What are we up to? 1 hour and 32 minutes. So I think you've had your money's worth. Chat, slange me, var. Oh, delicious. Cheers. Delicious, sir. Oh, that's lovely. Right. That's it for tonight. Fingers crossed. We'll be back on Friday for Sunday Night Ghost Stories Extra on a Friday. Until then, it behoves me to say thank you for watching. Why? Why not? Stay safe. Stay out of trouble. Please don't have nightmares. Good night.